hope you're all having a wonderful day. Welcome. My name is Trisha, and I am from Insectopia, and we like to talk about bugs and draw and all of the things here. So, welcome Hashi and Deb. We've been chatting a little bit in the chat box about what type of insect we wanted to sketch today. I had pulled out a wedge beetle because sometimes I just pull bugs out just in case. That you guys would like me to suggest a buggy, but then Hashi mentioned we might want to do a bee, and so I went and I checked my collection, and we've done a lot of the native bees that I've identified. I do have a handful of bees that are pinned, and they are in the unidentified box. So maybe one of these days we could actually go through and identify the bees, so then I'll be able to know what they are when we do them. I haven't taken a lot of time to go back and ID some of my bugs recently, so very good. Now, that is our bumblebee. Oh, that way. That's our bumblebee we're looking at today. He's so fluffy. I love it so much. Now, we've talked about the rules for naming insects. Like, if the word is together, that means it's kind of like lying to you. Like, dragonflies are not a true fly, just like butterflies aren't a true fly because the words are together. But so regularly, people put the word and write bumblebee as one word. And I prefer to separate the words because bumblebees are a true bee. They are in the family Apidae, which is generally what we consider like the bees. There are other families of bees, but like honeybees and bumblebees are all in the family Apidae. I'm told Deb means bee. Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. I'm glad we could do one after your namesake then. Alright, so the entire family is Apidae, but we're talking about a bumblebee, and bumblebees are a genus of bees. So our friend here is in the genus Bombus. Bombus for the bumblebees. Alright, I believe I have the ability to measure from the front of its head to the back of its abdomen. We're so close. There it goes. Alright, I cut it a little bit short to take into consideration that hair right there. It looks like from the front of the head to the back of the abdomen is about 1.76 centimeters long. To give you an idea. Let me zoom that back in. We don't need that border. It's da bomb. Of course it is. And you know what? Bumblebees are the most, I guess you might want to call them the most reliable, or it's kind of the best native pollinator, right? So obviously the European honeybee gets the award for pollination across the country. But bumblebees come second to honeybees, and they are native, so I give them a big thumbs up. When you think about a lot of our other species of native bees, a lot of them are stem nesting, like leafcutter bees and mason bees. Those are all a lot of our natives are solitary bees. Whereas bumblebees do live in colonies, just like honeybees do. There are actually some farmers and things that instead of getting honeybee colonies for their farms, they will bring bumblebee colonies to the farms now. And bumblebee colonies are really cool. They come in these little cardboard boxes and they're really dark, and the little queen lives in there. It's a lot of fun. I worked in a lab for a while that was doing research on them. Yeah, I was working in Rufus Isaac's lab. I was doing the rearing of the great berry moth. But there were other people in the lab that were taking the bumblebee colonies and leaving them at agricultural farms. Hi, friends. Love it. All right. So I figure we are going to go ahead and sketch our bumblebee from a lateral point of view today. That way, I only have to worry about one set of legs. How about that? So I'm going to turn my paper sideways so we get more of this space here. Very good. And I think, as long as I can do it gently, I'm going to rotate our bumblebee so that it's a little more even for me. A little straighter. Now, I'm not an expert on bumblebees down to species. I do believe we probably could get it to species using the striping pattern on the abdomen and the location that it was collected. This one was collected near Goblin State Park in Utah. The goblins are awesome if you haven't been. All right, so our head here. We're gonna be moving this specimen around to make sure that we can see all of the mouth parts and the like. But let's get a light sketch started. So our head is going to be kind of flat on the back, rounded around the front. I like to call this kind of like a D-shaped head. We are going to be going back and modifying the lines and the shapes. So keep in mind that our first sketch is super duper light, and then we can go back in. Remind me why you just put SP after Bombus. That is a great question. So, we know that the genus is Bombus, right? But, Eric Eden might be helping us out. He said might be Bombus morrisoni. Morrison's bumblebee. How would we determine that? We could probably determine it together. All right. And Deb, I'm going to describe to you the species. So, we know that the genus is Bombus, but we are looking at one specimen, one individual. So, when I write SP, that just is like the fill-in for the epithet. It's a fill-in for kind of like one species. So when we're looking at one individual, we know that it's only from one species, so we can put SP after the genus. If we were looking at a group of bumblebees and we weren't sure if some of them were in the same species and some of them might be in other species, but we know they're all in the genus Bombus, then we can put SPP, meaning that they're all in the genus, but there's multiple species. We know that it is an individual species, so that just helps us determine, and I normally don't just write the genus by itself. I'll always have an epithet of some type. And an epithet is the second word of a Latin taxonomical. All right, so the thorax is up here and rounded out, and Eric, I would totally trust Eric. So the likelihood is that he said it is Bombus morrisoni, the Morrison's bumblebee. I'll have to look up pictures to confirm that. All right, so our thoracic region is going to be very square. We've talked about the reason why that is. A lot of the thorax's job is for movement, whether that's for legs or wings, and all of those muscles on the inside of the thorax need to be able to connect to all the walls and contract and move all of those legs and all of those wings, and so it needs to almost be kind of boxy, and so that shape is going to help with muscle connection. All right, when we look at the abdomen of a bumblebee, a lot of times it's not connected at both the top and the bottom, it's only connected at the bottom. And even if it's super, super fluffy, we call that setose. Even if it's super, super fluffy, the connection comes all the way down here. So we can't really see. Let's see. So we've got this. That becomes very evident when bumblebees are like flying around and visiting flowers and moving their abdomen up and down. You'll see that that connection is lower on the thorax. All right, let's move the specimen over so we can see the angle of the end of the abdomen. There we go. He doesn't come to too much of a point. She. All right, that gives us a little bit of an outline. The wings look like they're going to be connecting almost a little bit lower on the thorax, so I'm going to give myself a little wing connection and maybe even the direction that the wings are going. I'll give myself a light outline for these wings. All right, so I have about where the wings are going to be happening, and then I might as well give myself some stick legs that'll help kind of guide me through this. So it looks like I'm going to start with the hind ones. It's funny because the hind legs almost look like they're connected to the abdomen, but it's the very, very back of the thorax right here where that femur starts and comes out. And then you've got the tibia that comes down and kind of in front of the abdomen, so it'll be nice to have a little bit of a stick leg here to help guide us. And then we have the rest of the leg. And I'm not going to worry too much about those details until we get down there. All right, so we've got that hind leg all situated. The middle leg is going to come out of the middle third of our thorax here. It comes up, goes down, and then out. And then our front leg, I believe it's kind of tucked up next to the body. And bumblebees do this in flight, so I think it would be kind of cute to draw the leg tucked up here next to the head. But let's go see what it looks like, because we might be able to get it kind of sticking out. So let's see what happens. Look at his cute little leg. All right. I'm going to flip our bumblebee over. We're going to look at the other side, see if the other side has a better view for that leg. All right, so this side has a view of the leg, the mouth part, and the antenna. All happening kind of at the same time. He's so fluffy. Alrighty, so where I was trying to get a decent image of this front leg here, it is right here. We have the front leg coming up, and then the tarsal segments come back this way. I do believe we can kind of put them forward, and then we'll at least have some of those toes out, but this is how the bumblebee really is going to fly. It's going to kind of tuck its legs up. And a lot of times, if you watch a bumblebee kind of take off, it starts buzzing its wings, and then it pulls its front legs up first, and then it'll kind of take off from its hind wings, or from its hind legs. You know, they're pretty heavy. Alright, so our front leg is going to be way up here. And keep in mind the legs the front leg generally does go forward. So you've got the femur, the tibia, and then the tarsal segments. And I'm just going to make sure that all of my tarsi are kind of on the same plane. That works for me. Alright. So the other thing that we're seeing here is the antenna. Right here, long and straight. That's what we would call a filiform, long and straight antenna. And then, if we looked, you see this long orange guy right here? That's its tongue. That's its mouth part. It makes me want to flip it over and zoom in and see what the base of its mouth looks like. But the very, very tip of its mouth part has very short, beautiful golden hairs. Check that out. I thought that was really pretty. Don't let me get distracted, though. Let's go look at the head and really start darkening in our sketch and finalizing it up. Its head, her head is twisted. That's what's happening. For those of you who would like to know, our bumblebee does have 2 large compound eyes and 3 simple eyes, or 3 ocelli. And she's got a small cluster of hair up here on the front of her face. All right. Okay, so I think that this point of view is going to help us see the head once my microscope catches up with my camera. Here we go. The ocelli look like a tiara. Yeah, they're in that very triangular kind of circular shape around there. That's a better... I'm just trying to get a decent image of the lateral of this head here. There's some antenna. That'll work. Birdscaping Industries says, looks like a male bumblebee. I guess I don't know, like, I wouldn't know the species well enough to know it for size if it was male or female. How would you determine it? In a bumblebee. Right, for our head shape. There we go. Our head is going to get a lot more narrow at the base because it's coming down all the way to that nice long mouth part that's going to end in that golden hair type. I believe that mouth part is more of a tongue and less of a straw. So butterflies are going to have a straw where they drink nectar from, and I believe bumblebees more like they use those hairs on the outside, kind of like uptake hairs. I believe that's how it works. The hairs in the front. Oh, cool. So the hairs right there, the like the clippiest, tell us male versus female. All right. All right. I'm going to start with our compound eye because I think that shape will help me also kind of shape our head out. So the compound eye is going to be flat on the base and then kind of rounded out, but our head is going to continue past that. I'm going to get the back of my head situated first. And then you've got to leave a little bit of room for those 3 ocelli. So they do kind of look like a crown, like someone had mentioned earlier. And from the lateral point of view, we're really only going to see the 2. I can go ahead and get my sketch a little bit closer to the camera. Males males have larger eyes often and no expanded pollen basket on the hind tibia. Cool. Awesome. So we'll be able to look at the characteristic of the pollen basket too to check that out. All right, we do have elbowed antenna on our bumblebee here. So the basal antenna, antennal segment, or the scape, is nice and long. I'm just gonna go ahead and give us the segment names for the antenna, just so that you have them up here. All right, go down about halfway down the head, and that's where our antenna starts. The first segment is nice and long, and that's going to be what we call the scape. The next segment is really kind of short, and I was going to, let's see, I could probably get you a zoomed in image of this. Once my computer decides to come back. There we go. Yeah, so this first segment is nice and long, but it's coming up towards the camera, so it makes it a little bit trickier to see. But right here, this second segment, that's going to be the pedicel, and it is nice and short. And then the rest of these are what we're going to call the flagellum. And there are going to be many segments in this one. We're going to zoom out and count and see what we have. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 segments of the flagellum, which would give us a 14 segmented antenna. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I do believe that is 14 segments. You know, sometimes takes a minute to count. So we've got 1, 2. We're going to add 12 more segments. What you can do is kind of estimate the length of the rest of the antenna, something like that. And then go ahead and divide that into 12 segments. There's not a lot of, like, distinction between the individual segments, so you don't have to make them, like, too distinctual from one another. So sometimes we build our antenna like this, where you've got lots of angles here, but this one we're going to be kind of closer to even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so we've got that half of our antenna taken care of, and I'm going to bring this on down for the mouth part that we're going to connect. I am going to come back in and add some of that hair here, especially the thick hair up here in the front of the head, because we want to make sure that we're taking in all of that information. The compound eyes, as you know, I like to crosshatch inside of them just to make it look more insectoid. Make it look more like a compound eye. Alrighty, I want to flip our bumblebee upside down. I'm curious what this mouth part's going to look like from this direction. And it'll give us an idea of how we want to sketch it. I definitely need to read more about the mouth parts of bumblebees, because this is awesome. it's natural for the antenna to be down close to the body like this bee's? And I guess the answer would be at rest. Like at rest, sometimes bumblebees will kind of take their antenna and pull them next to their head. So this would be kind of like a resting or a sleeping bumblebee. So I'm not sure how to describe this mouth part because I don't know if I've ever really zoomed in on the base of a bumblebee mouth part, but that looks like almost the mouth opening, and then you have 3 segments coming out. You have this central piece, which is mostly like a tongue that's used for lapping up liquids like nectars, and then you have the 2 pieces on the side that are the protectors, and that's like a sheath that has the ability to open and close. So in this specimen, the sheath is open and the tongue is sticking out. So if we continue to scoot our specimen down, we can see right about here, this is where that sheath ends. So you can see kind of where it opens and where you have that long tongue-like mouth part continuing. And I believe if we zoomed in here, yeah, there's all types of uptake hairs on this sheath too. So I would have to assume that this central tongue kind of moves in an upwards and downwards direction, and then the sheath kind of helps bring the liquids up to the mouth. That's a really pretty mouth part. So for our mouth, I think what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to be adding the sheath on the one side and the tongue, and I'm going to run it along the bottom of our head here. So this almost comes down and looks like a point because that's the very end of the sheath. And then the tongue is going to connect kind of right above that. And it's just going to kind of go down into a nice longer tongue area. And it does go, it reaches to about the base of the hind legs. So mine could even be a little bit longer. And then we saw at the very base of this that there were uptake hairs. So sometimes I will take that very small end and kind of zoom it in and give us that image. Let me go and move it over so we can see. It looks like this is going to be a little difficult. Yeah, sometimes the sketches are a little difficult, but we do try to make them kind of a simple step by step. So stick around and see if you can do it and maybe challenge yourself. So this guy right here is the very end of the mouth, and it almost looks kind of wavy, but it has that very fine gold felt-like hairs right here on the end. So that's what I'm trying to do with nice short pencil strokes and making them pretty dark because I don't want to have to go back over them. And that shows us those uptake hairs. Alrighty, I think I'm happy with the head. We have our compound eye, our antenna, our ocelli taken care of. Let's go move to the thorax. It's so pretty. Oh no, I forgot. Is that how we spell it? Yes. No. 2 R's, 1 S. It's always those double letters. Wait, Trisha, there were claw-ish things at the mouth. Oh, right, at the opening of the mouth. They were the edge of the mouth hole. I'm not sure what they are. Those what look almost like clawish things are actually hairs. Like a long, thick, mustachy kind of guy. So you're right. Right about here, this connection shouldn't be totally even. It can be kind of rough, almost like a mouth hole, and then the sheath comes out of it. So I changed my sketch just a little bit to take into consideration that, that mouth hole and those hairs there. All right. And the question is, what were they? They're hairs, but I'm not sure what their names would be. She's so fluffy. You're welcome. Alright, so for my thorax, I want to get the edge of the thorax taken care of before we move to the legs. And now that we've zoomed in, I've noticed that this square section is really that hair. The thorax is probably a little lower than that. So I'm going to come in, connect my thorax down here to about the middle of the eyes, where the head is. And I'm going to round this out better. And then when I come back in and add the hairs, might even add it a little lower. And then when I come back in and add the hairs, I'm going to stay within that square bound that I gave myself earlier. I needed to make this thorax just a little bit lower. There we go. All right. Right about here, this is our shoulder pad. Which I will remember shortly. Sorry, guys. Sometimes it's a little late. Alright, so we've got this thorax here, and I'm going to keep thinking it's not the patella. The patella is a piece of a spider leg. It's the... Alright. The thorax is coming down. And I'm just going to round it out, and then we'll go ahead and connect the legs in here. Alright. So there's our thoracic region. The long CD come up almost in that square leg pattern. Here's something funny. There are sometimes bumblebees, the specimens, the hairs on the bumblebees will kind of start sticking together. You saw that up there in the mouth region where they almost looked like spines because there were kind of like clusters of hairs there. Some people will take their specimens and they put them in a jewelry cleaner. You know how jewelry cleaner is going to use that ultrasonic kind of vibration to jiggle all the dirt loose? You can kind of give bumblebees a bath in a jewelry cleaner and it'll fluff out their hairs. And it'll kind of shake them and fluff them off. Fluff them up. You know, if your specimens get sad. Alright, for this front leg, that's funny, like a bumblebee spa? Exactly. Alright, so we got that thoracic shape figured out. We're going to get this front leg now. Right here, we can see the top of the femur. So, let's see, I can get my fly out. this guy from the top right about here down to here, that's going to be our femur. From here to around here, that's our tibia. And then our bumblebee appears to have 1, 2, 3, 4 tarsal segments in the front. Yep. Eric, you'll laugh about that. The first person that I saw use a jewelry cleaner for cleaning or fluffing insects was Dr. Anthony Cognato. I think he's a mutual friend. Alright, so our femur is coming up from about the mid-head along in this region and coming back down. It ends right about where it would be connecting with this, with the mouth part. So we're going to end it right around here. Our tibia, instead of moving it back like the bumblebee is flying, I'm going to move it down like it's standing on something. So the tibia is probably about just a little bit shorter than the femur. So come down like this. And it starts wide and gets narrower. And then, if we look at our tarsal segments, we have 3 tarsal segments that are what I would call triangular segments. They fit into each other like this. Alright, and then the last tarsal segment is longer. Sometimes I call it like an elongated raindrop. And then you have 2 tarsal claws on either side. So that shape is what we're going to be sketching right here in this little section right here. So we've got a little triangle. 1, 2, 3. And these aren't just flat triangles. They're actually almost like cups that are stacked onto one another. If you look at them from above, or from, I guess, head on. Alright, so we've got 2 little tarsal claws. Yes! Advisor to Beetle Lady. Exactly. That's what I was wondering, Eric. Thank you for clearing that up. And I think that's why Hashi was also not understanding the positioning of, Yep. Here we go. Sorry, guys. That's why I had zoomed in because something didn't seem right. And so I really appreciate that. Yes, the femur should be connected to the bottom of the thorax. There was another segment that's stacked behind it, which is why this was happening. So here we go. I'm going to re-describe this one for you. Sorry about that. Right here, that's actually the tibia, and the issue is that we can't see the femur behind it because it's folded on top of itself, like this. Alright, so you've got the femur here and the tibia here, and it's folded on top of itself, which is why, when I looked at it, it liked to trick me. So this segment right here would then be tarsal segment number 1, and then you have the 3 triangles and the last tarsal claw. So you still have these segments here, except that because this is a tarsal segment, it's going to sit more like a foot and less like a tibia. More like this. So because it's a tarsal segment, instead of coming down and being more something that it's going to put weight on, like straight down on, it's going to angle out more like a foot, more like a tarsal segment. I didn't draw the femur. B-tarsi are weird. Exactly. That's not something that's normal, ladies and gentlemen. So they've got this crazy, crazy B-tarsi. And Eric over here has written the book on Hymenopteran. So I really appreciate him being here for us. Oh, I appreciate that, birdscaping. I think that when you're doing the legs like this, I just try and imagine them like shapes. Like, yes, that's a long rectangle, or a long rectangle with rounded areas. Also, having this light sketch to work off of really helps me kind of keep the idea of like all of the pieces, all the moving parts. All right, so let's get this middle leg taken care of. Aw, thanks. Hashi says she's not exactly convinced because of the antennae length, and I haven't looked up pictures yet, so I'm going to put SP question mark, meaning that's a kind of a first yes species type question mark, I'm guessing based on its overall appearance and then its locality. Being from Utah. All right, so our femur is going to be connected to the bottom of our thorax right about here. We're just going to be making this kind of wide, boxy shape starting around here, rounding it out, and coming up towards in this direction, right? So we're going to be creating this femur here. Now, the tibia is going to come on top of that. It's coming in this direction. So it's going to be more like this, and you're going to be able to kind of erase one of these lines in here because our tibia is going to overlap the femur. That's a pretty wide tibia. And the tarsal segments on the bumblebee's middle legs are very similar to the front legs. So let me change our focus here so you can see them a little better. Or maybe even turn the specimen upside down. Maybe we'll be able to see the middle legs better. Alright, so here is our tarsal segments, or our toe segments. I didn't write down our words for you for spelling purposes, so that's that. Femur is that first segment, the tibia, and then all of the other ones are considered toe segments or tarsi. Now, we've got the tibia here. The first tarsal segment, just like the first tarsal segment on the first leg, is that long segment that's placed underneath the tongue right there. So that's a nice long rectangle. Now, these were very triangular or cup-like tarsal segments, whereas the ones in our middle leg are more like this. They're more rectangular with edges. And there's going to be 3 of them there. 1, 2, 3. And then you have the final tarsal segment with the two claws. So we have a front leg and a middle leg. Let's go check out this hind leg. more straight. This one looks a little straighter. Males have longer antennae. Oh. And Birdscaping earlier had said he suspected that it was male. And now that we're looking at the hind legs, Eric had mentioned that the males don't have pollen baskets, right? They don't have need for them. So, I mean, the tibia is a little bit wider, but I'm not seeing the really thick, like pollen basket hairs that you would see on a female. Boy. All right, now the femur is connected right here at the base of the thorax, and it's going to come up in front of the abdomen. So if we start it right around here and just bring it up kind of like that, like a longer rounded out rectangle. Our tibia, I had originally sketched kind of very narrow at the base and then wider at the top, but it looks like it's more of a, it expands kind of higher up and then is not as long. So I'm going to say that it probably is more like narrow and then more like that, where it's kind of a, rather than it being kind of straight, it's narrow and then it kind of swooshes out. I don't know how to describe that. Rounded rather than angular, maybe is a good way to describe that. Although I like sound effects to describe drawing. Ay, ay, ay. All right, you've got this femur taken care of here. I'm actually going to, looking back on my leg, I want to make it a little bit wider, so I'm just going to kind of fatten up my femur right here. We've got the tibia. The first segment of the tarsi is that really wide-looking segment here. That's the first tarsal segment of our bumblebee. Of our bumblebee's hind leg, and we're gonna zoom in on the rest of the tarsal segments to see what's happening over there. I think that he may have gotten his toes crossed. He got his toes crossed. So what we're looking at here are the last 4 tarsal segments. So the final one is that long raindrop shape with the 2 claws. And funny enough, you're seeing it from the top, and then right behind it, right around here, you can see those claws, and it's because that's the hind leg from the other side. It wrapped over and it grabbed onto this leg. So you've got this one, and then you have these 3 tarsal segments that are very triangular, so closer to this type shape, but maybe even pointier on the fronts. So more like this, with more kind of triangular shapes. 1, 2, 3. And then the long one with the claws. And those are tarsal claws. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the leg structure that we've got going on here. We've got the head taken care of, the thorax. What we really need to do is take care of these wings and then the abdomen. I do remember collecting this specimen, and there were a whole lot of bumblebees that day. So It's very possible that they were kind of on a mating craze. It was also very warm that day. And then that night, I laid on a picnic table and watched shooting stars. Goblin State Park's a great place. All right, let's get the abdomen taken care of, and then we'll come back in and we'll probably put the wings on top of it. Sounds like a plan. So I'm going to leave this space here where I had kind of sketched my wings coming through. I might kind of sketch the abdomen in that region a little bit lighter, because I know that I'm likely going to have to erase it anyway. Let's see. And get some of this taken care of. Take it out. All right. What we really need to know are how many abdominal segments it has, and how many are there yellow stripes, and how many are there black stripes. Let's see. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you what I would consider kind of like my best entomological guess on these abdominal segments, because as you can imagine, it's a little difficult to count them with all of this CD. Many of you know insect hair is called CD, and if you want to say that something is fluffy or hairy, you would call it cetose. I believe that our first abdominal segment ends right around here. You can see kind of that straight line of the end of the hairs. So that would be kind of the first abdominal segment. The second one, I believe, ends right about here. So it looks like the second one is about time and a half the length of the first one. You've got this third yellow stripe here. And then I do believe that this is 2 abdominal segments at the end, even though it looks like all one black fluffy segment. I do believe that's 2. All right. So we've got our friend here. Make sure that your abdomen, the top of your abdomen, kind of lines up with the top of your thorax, because once that is like all the way connected as she's moving around, she makes one kind of solid B. He makes one solid B. All right, I'm going to get myself my estimates as to kind of where each of these segments ends. So let's see, I've got the first one right around here. I have the second one probably right around here. The third one's nice and short, around here. Maybe give it a little bit longer. Right around there. That's about right. Go back and forth with it until you like what you see. And then the last 2 segments. So I think I'm going to just shorten my abdomen up just a little bit, because I want it to get just a little bit more narrower than it did, and then divide it in 2. These last 2 segments are going to be the black ones. All right. Now, with our bumblebee here, it is so cetose that what I would end up doing is coming through and adding these long yellow hairs and trying to make sure that these hairs on the... You give a little bit of space in between the segments so that you can still kind of tell where they're going to be. And I'm trying to make the hairs on the yellow segments going to be a little less thick than the hairs on the darker segments. And this, even though it's 2 segments, all kind of looked like one. So I'm not afraid of kind of covering it up just a little bit, because the bee wasn't afraid of covering it up just a little bit. All right. I'm just going to finish that line up. All right, let's get some wings on here. he does have 4 wings, 2 forewings and 2 hind wings. Hymenopterans, or bees, wasps, and ants, are named Hymenoptera. Hymen for kind of a... I love when I'm talking and I decide to say something and I forget the word. A membrane. Hymen meaning membrane, and ptera, P-T-E-R-A, meaning wings. So it's talking about these membranous wings that bees, wasps, and ants all have that are nice and thin, and you can see through them, and they're generally not covered in hairs or covered in scales or anything else like that. And they fly with all 4. Alright, so right about here in the central of our thorax, this is actually connected to the end of the first segment of the thorax. So it's going to be pretty much right in front of where the second leg connects. Is where you're gonna want to put that. That's your essentially your it's like your shoulder for your bee. It protects all of the flight muscles right there. And our wings come up and over the specimen. And they meet in the center, so a lot of times when a honeybee's or a bumblebee's wings meet in the center, I'll make them kind of narrower at this point, and then I'll widen them once they get to the abdominal area, because then, if you imagine it coming back over from the other side, it would almost look like this, where you've got a little bit of a wing over here, and it kind of folds back over in this direction. But I'm okay with just leaving the wings kind of long and straight like this, especially with a specimen where it's not really holding its wings well enough to draw it from a lateral point of view. If we do turn our beautiful bumblebee so that we can see the top of its wings, it should have 3 subapical cells, or 3 subcostal cells. Tegula! Very good. Thank you, Eric. Yes, the shoulder pad right here, where the wing connects to the thorax, that is called the tegula. That's what it is. Alright, so we did mention, now we're going to get a little bit into at least the identification of Apidae down to family. And I do believe there are a couple, of families of bees that have this, but I want to show it to you. Because it's something that gets brought up in the keys if you're trying to identify a family. Identify these guys to family. So, our family for these guys is Apidae, or kind of like the bees. The bumblebees and the honeybees are all in Apidae. We have mentioned before that the leading vein of an insect wing is called the costa, spelled C-O-S-T-A. And then, so you've got veins like the costa, and then you can have cells where the veins completely enclose a region of the wing. This one right here is what we would call the costal cell, because it's the cell that's connected to the costa, and it's the only one along the front of the wing. Then we can actually base the next 3 cells off of this one. So this is what we call the costal cell, and those next 3... we call them 3 subcostal cells. And they are right here, going 1, 2, 3. And they're like these little boxes. And some bees have 2 subcostal cells, some bees have 3 subcostal cells, but Apidae always has 3. Alright, so that is a fun little characteristic, and if you are asked about it, now you know at least where to find it. It's right there on the back. Whew. That was a whole lot about bumblebees. Oh, yes, and every now and again you'll see a bumblebee like this where it has kind of a spot in the middle of its back where it's not so fluffy anymore, and that was likely caused by me or the collecting in general. Every now and again when you're collecting a bumblebee, you have to actually grab it at somewhere, and it's so fluffy everywhere, you can accidentally knock the hairs off of its body. So you have to be really careful not to break them off, and I think that there I may have rubbed some of the hairs off of the top. Whoopsies! He forgives me, I promise. Alright. I think that is all about our bumblebee. If you have questions about the bumblebee, or you would like to see some other region of it, if there's a viewpoint that you would like to see, I believe we got a lot of them, but if you can think of another one, I'd be willing to put it back under the microscope. We have so many people here right now. I want to pose a question to you because I have a thing in my collection and it's driving me. I would really like to know what this is. So, I'm going to show it to you guys and you can tell me what you think. So I have taken some really close microscopic pictures of this little guy here. To give you some background, the large beetle that is under this microscope right now is in the family Rhipiphoridae. It's a wedge-shaped beetle. All right, he's really cute. Maybe one day we'll sketch him. He doesn't have like complete wings or anything like that. He has a really funny looking shape and a really wide pronotum and all types of stuff. So, this is what our friend looks like whole. But if I zoom in to his lateral, as far as I can, well, I need to zoom it out just a little bit so there's enough light for it. There is a little friend riding his side. He's got a buddy. And I would really, really like to know what this is. And I'm not sure. To me, it looks like a very, very, very tiny itty-bitty beetle because it has this here, which would be kind of the end of the pronotum, and I can almost imagine that it has 6 legs, one around here, one here in the middle, and one here at the end. So it makes me think that it's a beetle, even though I know that if it's riding on a beetle, the likelihood is that it would be a commensalistic mite, right? A mite that would be hopping a ride. Does anybody know of a very, very small beetle like this guy right here that would hop a ride on a wedge-shaped beetle? It is some type of mite. Okay. That's helpful knowledge. He's so cute. All right, he can be a little mite. All right, very, very good. So, this is what my bumblebee looks like. I'm gonna put Bombus. I haven't written Mercenai on this yet. On here, our little bumblebee, and this is my sketch for the day. I gave it this little golden tongue right here. I'm pretty happy. I think that that's one of my favorite parts of the bumblebee today. Sometimes when I'm going through and I'm sketching, I'll like, there will be one part of the insect that like really calls to me. And today it was all of that really golden hair along the tongue of the bumblebee. And it really made me curious about how that all functions together. Because I can almost imagine how it works, but I always like to read and learn about it to make sure that, like, what I imagine is actually what happens. Very good. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and asking all the questions and sketching with me. This is what my bumblebee looks like. I always love to see your sketches. If you go ahead and you share them on Facebook, or if you share them on Instagram or on a blog, you can tag me at Insectopia 2015, both on Facebook and Instagram, or you can just shoot me an email down here to Trisha@theinsectopia.com and just say, hey, here's my drawing. You know, I love to see your sketches. And so feel free to share them with me. Or if you have just random bug questions, you have a bug in your house and you don't know what it is. I love just hearing from you guys and answering questions about bugs. So go ahead and shoot me an email at Trisha@theinsectopia.com. I teach to students ages 5 to 8 and 9 to 12 on this platform called OutSchool. We talk about a different insect every week, and I believe this week we talked about both monarch butterflies with the younger students and ladybugs with the older students. So that was a good time today. And keep in mind, please subscribe to my channel. For all of you who have been chatting with me in the chat box, thank you for being subscribers. You can only chat with me if you've subscribed, so I appreciate that very, very much. And if you hit that little notification bell, that means that will give you a notification every time I go live, so you know when it's happening. Down around there, that's my link to my PayPal account. That's where, if you've had a really great time today, if you learned something, if you joked around and smiled and laughed with us, feel free to send me a tip. I am in the process of creating all types of stuff, so I am looking forward to new creations, I believe, very shortly. So I don't know if I told everybody yet, but I do believe I finally have a publisher for my coloring book, so that's exciting. All right, I think that covers everything. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me and sketching with me today. Shout out to Hashi and Deb and Eric and Birdscaping. Thank you for chatting with me regularly and sharing your stories. Thank you! Yay! I'm pretty excited. Very, very good. All right. Have a wonderful week. I hope that I live stream on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern and Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Feel free to join me anytime. I never know what we're going to sketch, but we do it together and we have a good time. I will see you all next week. Stay buggy.